Unsolved Mysteries. I don't know the name of the channel just yet. We're still working on it. But what I do know is my name is Terry Williams, and I do have a junior on the end of it, so don't forget that. But uh, I found a couple cases, a couple more, a couple on Reddit, a couple I found on another site. So wanted to, I think I gotta find the author name. I'll find the author name here shortly, but yeah, no, I want to get into it tonight. Hey, another day, another mystery. These things, they pop up so often. And I'm pretty sure there's other channels that dedicate themselves to it. I probably need to do more research on these other channels as well. But I just find it fascinating to know there's these type of people out in the world who will basically do anything to get what they want. And kind of feel like people don't know about it, and it's good to bring it to light. Just like how yesterday we talked about the ballroom in Scotland that people still go to, and they don't even care. So yeah, but no, we'll get into it. Same order. Found actually today. I actually found a couple stories on Reddit that I'm actually going to go over, and we'll just jump into it. Mission today, a couple stories on Reddit. Found a story. It's actually by, what's the name? Catherine. Ooh, eyes. Ramsland. It's called The Angels of Death, The Doctors. So, pretty sure that's going to be pretty interesting. But let's go ahead and start off with our Reddit story. Let me fix it like this. Get this thing going. Okay. Start off. It was in Orlando, November 17th, 2011. Michelle Parker vanished. Michelle Parker, 33, was last seen on November 17th, 2011, dropping off her then 3-year-old twins at their father's home in Carter Glen condominiums in Orlando. Oh, they actually have timestamps on here, so this is interesting. At 2:30 p.m., she visited the family members at her mother's, Yvonne Stewart, salon in Oviedo. She left to pick up her twins from daycare. According to her mother, she was planning to head home after dropping the twins off with her ex-fiance, Dale Smith Jr. Says he was about 40, 41. How old is she? She's about 33. Around 3:15, she texted her boyfriend at the time, Nathan Mitchell. 3:30 p.m., Michelle's 11-year-old son arrived home from school. Shortly thereafter, he called his grandmother, Michelle's mom, asking where his mother was. Yvonne Stewart was surprised to hear that Michelle wasn't home yet. She called the daughter's phone, but no one answered. Stewart tried to contact Smith several times, but she was unable to get in touch with him then. Around 4:30 p.m., her brother Dustin Erickson sent her a text message asking her where she went. He got a message back that simply said Waterford, a possible reference to a nearby area. Waterford Lakes is an outdoor mall 11 to 12 miles from Carter Glen condominiums. I read that the area is called Waterford. Some speculate that someone else sent that text message. Normally, she sent longer messages, or at least smiley faces, XOs, I guess kissy faces, hearts, etc. 4:30 p.m., according to Dale Smith's attorney, he went to visit his parents with his children. It says 6:53 p.m., Michelle's sister was unsuccessful in her attempts to reach her by phone. 7:20 p.m., sister reported her missing to the police. It says around 7:30 or 8 o'clock p.m., depends on the source. It says Michelle was scheduled to work that night at a local bar called The Barn in Sanford. She didn't show up, which was unusual. And about the same time, around 8 p.m., her cell phone stopped transmitting a signal to the tower near Belle Isle, more than 7 miles from where she was last seen. 8:55, the video shows Michelle's Hummer stopped at the intersection of Vinland and Conroy Roads. The following day, November 18th, 2011, Michelle's 2008 black Hummer H3 was found parking was found in a parking lot in the Walden Palms apartment in the 4700 block of Walden Circle in Orlando. Decals for a mobile tanning business had been removed from the windows. Walden Palms is half or 3/4 of a mile from where the Hummer was caught on video. November 26, Orlando PD served a search warrant on Smith's parents' home in Rose Boulevard in Orlando. A police spokesman wouldn't reveal what, if anything, was found. 3 weeks after her disappearance, police found her phone in a lake near the Nella Bridge in Belle Isle. The lake is only 5 minutes away from the home of Dale Smith Jr. Michelle, who also worked at a former Jesse Black saloon in Oak Ridge, which is near where the phone was last pinged. Okay. Parker and Smith had taped an episode of the show The People's Court on June 2011. She went missing on the same day that episode aired. Episode might air just before Michelle went to Dale's. August 2023, OPD searched the property of Dale Smith Sr. Okay, so I guess their dad's involved. Off Rose Boulevard, looking for her remains under a concrete slab, but they found nothing. They used ground penetrating radar. Today, they had a search warrant to look at my daughter under the slab of Smith Jr. poured in without a permit. It says Yvonne said this back in 2012. Now, if you look at the satellite image of that area, Rose Boulevard, 2211, that concrete slab appeared somewhere between 2014 and 2015, most likely in 2014. The satellite images are taken every year, most likely at the end of January. No big changes there through the years. There's a shed in the northwest corner of the plot, most likely 2017 shed, or a terrace disappears. It says a roof or a terrace disappears. If you look at the satellite image on Carter Glen condominiums on South Goldenrod Road, you can see that in 2011, there were several underdeveloped plots. During 2011 and early 2012, 2 houses were built. I hope those construction sites were investigated. In 2012, at the FBI's, I don't know if they spelled this word right, I guess they meant urge. Police searched near the Carter Glen condominiums. They also searched the wooded area off Goldenrod Road in the Lee Vista area, and more volunteers sourced the woods by Lake Moss Park. It says at least there is an Orange County property appraiser site where you could find the old satellite images. This is man, the disappearance stuff is crazy though. It's like these people just go off the face of the earth, and you don't know what to do. And then she had a whole family. I know she had her ex-husband, but still, she had 3 kids. She had the twins, took them to daycare, and then I basically took them to daycare and wasn't seen again. Yeah, this one I have no idea. I can't pin anything down because the Hummer's gone. Her phone's off, obviously. After that amount of time, the battery's going to die, especially back in 2011. And then my thing is, there's no cameras. It doesn't sound like there was any cameras of her at all. That would be my thing. Just going back, she was supposed to go to work that night. Obviously, she was missing. She was reported to the police missing that evening before she was supposed to be scheduled to go to work. Nobody could get in touch with her. Let's say the son called, basically Michelle's mom. Man. Then she was 33 at the time. I can't even imagine. I couldn't imagine, because I doubt she was in a car accident because she was in the Hummer. So no telling what would have happened to this lady. It's sad. Yeah, these are things you can't prepare for, especially as anybody part of this, anybody close to this. There's nothing you could prepare for this to understand what's about to happen. That sucks. Oh man. Okay. Let me see what some of the other comments say. Yeah, they say, I wonder who could have done it. Only remains unsolved by sheer luck of the ex. Had just one camera caught him driving the Hummer around, he'd be done for. I do agree with that. If yeah, if he was driving around that Hummer at all or around that time, yeah, he would have been. It'd have been over for that guy. Someone said absolute luck, but the fact that there wasn't nearly the same amount of cameras pointed at the roads in 2011 as there are now. It happened that in these days, he likely would have been picked up by dozens of rings. That's true. Yeah, with the housing cameras. Half a dozen dash cams and hundreds of business CCTVs and traffic cams. Yeah. Yeah, they also put, these kind of cases frustrate me the most. We know who did it. The victim's family knows who did it. The cops damn well know who did it. But it languishes due to the lack of hard evidence and dumb luck on the part of the murderer. Yeah. Man, I don't know. I couldn't. I feel like somebody has to know something, right? You say if Dale, somebody, okay, so somebody puts out a theory. If Dale Jr. is involved, do the parents protect their son? After all, according to his attorney, he went to visit his parents with his children around 4:30 p.m. Around the same time, Michelle's brother sent her the text message and asked her where she was, and got a message that simply said Waterford. I'm curious where Michelle's phone pinged between 3 and 8 p.m. Ooh, I don't know. I don't know. So wait a second. I guess another question would be, are all three of the kids his, or is it just the twins that were his? If all three, they weren't together, he was going to take the kids to their parents. I wonder why. I don't know. These type of cases are sad. And then these children, the young ones, they still remember their mother. If they're going to daycare, they'll definitely remember who their mom is. Probably not to the same level as the 11-year-old, but still, go to bed at night, wake up in the morning expecting to see. It could be any parent, really, expecting to see that parent and them not be there, and realizing that they're never coming back is a pain I hope to never experience. I will say that. All right, let's get into our second story. I think this one's going to be a lot longer. So let me do it. Let me do this. Let me drink some water before we go ahead and get this thing started. All right. Our next unresolved mystery. This is how it starts. The 2001 disappearance of Sharon Davis, an unsolved mystery. It says segment is produced about the case, but never airs after her husband sends the show an accusatory letter. All right, let me do this just so I can actually read. In 2001, Sharon Eugenia Davis was a 51-year-old school teacher living in Dallas, Texas, with her husband of 21 years, Ron Davis. The couple's two children were both attending the University of Texas Arlington, with their son, Ronnie, living on campus, and the daughter, Autumn, still living at home. At around 7:30 a.m. on the morning of June 13th, Sharon climbed in her minivan and dropped off Autumn at a bus depot so she could go to work on her summer job. Afterwards, Sharon was planning to return home to change her clothes before attending a training session at her school, but she never arrived there. When Sharon failed to return home that night, her two children asked Ron to report her missing, but he did not do so until the following morning. On June 18th, Sharon's abandoned minivan was discovered in the parking lot of Bali Total Fitness Club she sometimes frequented, located less than a mile from her home. The van was wiped clean of fingerprints, and one of the windows was broken. Employees from the club would claim they first recalled seeing the van in the parking lot sometime after midnight on June 14th. Suspicion soon took towards Ron, who was very uncooperative and avoided a police interview for 3 weeks. His marriage to Sharon was a very troubled one, and in 1985, she took the children and started driving to California to stay with relatives. She intended to divorce Ron, but ultimately changed her mind and returned home to reconcile with him. In spite of this, Ron continued to be emotionally and verbally abusive to Sharon, and on June 11th, just 2 days before she went missing, she finally contacted an attorney and officially filed for divorce. Sharon was planning to request the sole possession of their house and control of more than half of their family's assets, but her attorney advised her to remain in the home until the divorce proceedings went through. Even though Ron was not officially served with divorce papers, Sharon did warn him they were coming and asked her daughter to not leave her alone with him. According to Autumn, on the night before she went missing, Sharon asked her to move one of the vehicles out of the driveway because Ron had to leave for a breakfast business meeting the following morning. Autumn found this odd because it was uncharacteristic for Ron to conduct business during early morning hours. But when she woke up around 6:30 a.m., Ron was not at the house and never returned before her mother drove her to the bus depot. When questioned by the police, Ron would not share any specific details about this so-called breakfast meeting. He expressed his belief that Sharon ran away voluntarily and claimed she had taken over $10,000 in cash, which they had been keeping inside of the house, though he refused to show them the location where this money was supposedly kept. Ron also said that Sharon was mentally ill and put forward the idea that she voluntarily checked into a mental institution. But everyone else in Sharon's life denied that she suffered from any form of mental illness. In September, Ronnie Davis drove from this campus dorm to his family house in order to confront his father and demand to know what happened to Sharon. A heated confrontation broke out, which prompted Ron to grab a gun and point it at his son. Ronnie went to the authorities and filed a felony assault charge against Ron, but a grand jury ultimately decided not to indict him. Ronnie and Autumn would eventually stop speaking with their father and believed he was responsible for what happened to their mother. The case was eventually captured on the attention of Unsolved Mysteries, who filmed and produced a segment about Sharon's disappearance. While Ron was contacted by doing an on-camera interview, he declined to do so. The segment was scheduled to air during the spring of 2002, but plans were halted when Ron sent producers of the show an accusatory letter, and the segment has never seen the light of day. The week after Sharon went missing, Ron hired an attorney named Cheryl Watley, but she stopped representing him about a year later. In April 2003, Ron filed a suit against Watley, alleging that she owed him a partial refund of $10,000, the retainer fee that he paid her. The case went to small claims court, but now that they were on opposing sides in a civil trial, attorney-client privilege would be stripped away. So Watley was under no obligation to remain silent about anything Ron said to her. At the trial, Watley testified that Ron had expressed concern that his wife's disappearance might lead to other investigations into alleged involvement in tax evasion and money laundering. Indeed, Ron was once on the executive board of the Dallas branch of the NAACP, but was suspended because of some irregularities in one of their elections. He responded by incorporating a new chapter of the NAACP, which he ran out of his home, and also started the Dallas Economic Development Corporation, a nonprofit and tax-exempt organization that supposedly provided services to low-income individuals. Watley also claimed that Ron told her to do a television interview in which she painted Sharon as a mentally ill or drug addict, but she refused to do so. And in the end, the jury ruled that Watley's favor and awarded her $1,558 in damages, but the investigation has remained at a standstill, and Sharon Davis is still a missing person. Okay, I wanted to read that all out before I kind of started going crazy. Okay, so you telling me this guy, one, Okay, obviously he's being abusive to his wife. I'm gonna go ahead and just say that. Two, he's not cooperating in any sense of the word. And we're just gonna give this man a free pass? What are we doing? Okay, like he should be prime suspect number one. I don't understand why they couldn't get a warrant. Why weren't they able to get a warrant to see like anything within the house if there was a struggle of any sort? But they said, okay, so yeah, search cars, vehicles, anything. My thing is, so the lady goes missing. The husband, and she's about to file for divorce, and we think the husband didn't have anything to do with it. The husband's not, he's not even looking for his wife. Didn't really file a missing persons until the kids forced him to do so, and then wanted to point a gun at the son because the son's upset. Obviously, he's going to be upset. Both kids are upset. My mother is missing. I need my mom back, and she's gone. But nah, I want to say this guy. They got to look into Ron Davis. When did this happen? Let me see if we had a date and I just missed it. Oh, it was 2001. 2001. She was 50, so she would be around 70 plus now. Yeah. Yeah. I would really be looking into this guy. There's no way I'm not. Some of the comments is that sadly one of the most dangerous times in a woman's life is when she leaves her partner. May her memory be a blessing to her children who are robbed of the rightful lifetime with their mother. Yes, I agree. I agree. And somebody under that put, this is why it frustrates me so much when people say, but why didn't she leave him? Yeah, this is, yeah, I can see that because, yeah, people go crazy. And why did he want to be in a marriage with somebody? Oh, it's not that he wanted to be in a marriage. She was about to take his stuff. I was like, why would he want to be in a marriage with somebody that he obviously hates? He doesn't like her. Another comment says, as a divorce attorney, it absolutely infuriates me when divorce attorneys don't understand domestic violence dynamics. There are safe ways to leave abusive marriages, but stay in the house until things are resolved. It's such unbelievably bad advice, it makes my head spin. Safety planning is such a huge part of my job, and I can't believe so many attorneys blow it off. Hopefully her attorneys learn their lesson. Well, she's probably gone now, so yeah, learn a lesson at somebody else's expense. But honestly, I did forget about that part of the story. Yeah, the attorney definitely told her to stay at the house until the divorce is final. And I don't, yeah, and he was not waiting that long. Another comment says, when I left my abusive ex, I basically left in the night with very few things. I consulted with a divorce attorney who literally told me to go back home and just sleep in a separate room with a glass of water by the door so I could hear him come in. There was probably a 50 loaded guns in the house in every room, and he had a huge history of violence. So that was the dumbest thing to say. She also told me to make sure he's taking his psych meds by literally spiking his drinks with him. The attorney said that? I feel like that's not ethical by the attorney, and I wish I filed a report at the time with the board, but I wasn't in any place mentally to do anything like that. Oof, man, that is terrible. Man. Yeah, another divorce lawyer says the first thing they tell their clients is to establish a safety plan. Yeah, yeah, safety. Yeah, safety is going to be the most important thing, especially in an abusive relationship. Man, and this is even if she's 50. Yeah, a lot of people are putting, why would her attorney advise her to stay in the house? Let's see. On the night before she went missing, Sharon asked her to move one of the vehicles out of the driveway because Ron had to leave for a breakfast business meeting for the following morning. Okay, so somebody puts, not sure if this is a relevant detail, but it sounds like Ron may have left early to take care of something or simply get away from his family to shift his mindset into doing murder. They found Sharon's car. Did they ever look in that car that Ron took out, or any other cars in that household? Didn't see this mentioned anywhere, but it may have been a significant clue to where Ron went. For example, evidence that he drove into the woods, dirt road, etc. Ron definitely proceeded brutally, slandered his wife, basically accused her of mental illness and addiction, which is messed up. Assassinating her character would help him whether they made it to the divorce proceedings, and it also set up plausible excuse for disappearance. It's surprising that Rob is mentioned only as a possible suspect. I agree with that. I don't understand how he's just a possible suspect. He should be the suspect. Let's see. That's common advice from my understanding. A divorce can drag out for years, and if you leave, you may not be able to get back in until everything is settled. A judge may also take abandonment into account when dividing assets. Yeah, seems like a lot. Yeah, this whole situation, all of these are messed up, man. Yeah, everybody is putting, why would the attorney tell her to stay inside the house? Yeah, everybody's saying that is literally the worst thing that she could have done. And we could definitely tell now. And that sucks. Yeah, man. Feel bad for the family. Feel bad for the kids. Yeah, it seems like the husband really didn't care about this woman. Poor Sharon. Yeah, didn't care about this lady at all. And they've been married for 20 years at this point. That sucks. It does. Ah, man. All right. Last one I'm gonna do. This one's not necessarily a unsolved mystery or unsolved case. This one was under the category of truly weird and shocking. It's called The Angels of Death, The Doctors. And once I saw that name, I was like, I have to read it. I need to know more. It is by Catherine Ramsland. Okay. Let's get going. Children were fond of him, and he brought them sweets, and even gave them rides to the place where they would be exterminated. Joseph, I'm about to butcher this name, Mengele, the doctor in Auschwitz and the ultimate angel of death, was an anomaly. A leader in the Nazi biomedical vision, he thrived on experiments with genetic abnormalities, even surpassing Hitler at times. Wow. Mengele has come to embody the archetype of absolute evil, perhaps because he so egregiously violated his professional oath to honor and preserve life. Mengele arrived in Auschwitz on May 30th, 1943. He was 32, from a Catholic family, and had long been a Nazi enthusiast. In school, his specialty had been physical anthropology and genetics, and he was fully committed to bringing science into service of Nazi enterprise. In fact, he specifically asked to be sent to Auschwitz because of the opportunities such a place could provide for his research. In charge of the selections process, he showed up at the prisoner transports looking quite elegant and would decide at a glance each person's destiny. Whew. If anyone started trouble over being separated from a relative, he might wordlessly beat or shoot them both. He appeared to have no conscience, and he sent anyone with an imperfection, including imperfect height, right to the gas chamber. My goodness. However, he kept the twins and as many sets of doubles he could find. They were destined for his labs. Mengele enjoyed his powerful position and was completely at home with his task. To uphold the Nazi ideal of racial purification was his driving motivation. Yet no one quite knew what to expect. Even as he separated families and killed with impunity, he might step into the role of concerned physician and whimsically allowed some people to live. The power of life and death resided in him. His desire to improve the efficiency of camp as a killing machine, he taught other doctors how to give phenol injections to a long line of prisoners, quickly ending their lives. He also shot people, and by some reports, he tossed live babies in the crematoria. Oh my God, this guy is sick for real. Throughout all of this, he kept a detached, efficient demeanor and viewed himself strictly as a scientist. Okay, buddy. Mengel's great passion was his research on twins. They were weighed, measured, and compared in every way. Blood was endlessly withdrawn, and they were questioned about family histories. Some he would kill for pathological examinations, dissecting a few himself and keeping a few parts preserved. Others he might operate on without anesthesia, removing limbs or sexual organs. He even did some sex change operations. If one twin died during these experiments, then the other was no longer of use. My goodness. So he or she was simply gassed. Substances were injected into living children to see how they reacted, often damaging or killing them. It didn't matter much to Mengele. There was always more on the way. Yet, even as he was targeted them for mutilation or death, he would play with them and show them great affection. Afterward, he might walk around with their heads or pin their eyes to a bulletin board. My goodness. When I thought he said play with him, I thought they meant actually play with the kids and then, go crazy. But they meant this guy was truly sick. Good Lord. He also studied dwarves and particular types of mutilating diseases. But one odd experiment was his attempt to change eye color to blue. He'd inject the eyes of children with a chemical that had caused immense pain and even blindness, but which failed to have the desired effect. Those who worked with him thought him scientifically irresponsible and naive. Overall, Mengele was caught up with the idea of genetic cultivation of a superior race. I was just about to say that because I was like, wasn't that the whole thing about the Nazis and the Jews and that whole thing? But okay. To repeat that sentence. Overall, Mengele was caught up with the idea of genetic cultivation of a superior race, and his esteemed position there at the camp fed his desire to be a god. He kept notes on all his procedures to send to his mentor, but most of them were lost. After the war, Mengele escaped Nuremberg trials and fled to South America. He died in 1979, and his remains were identified by a team of forensic anthropologists. Even so, his evil lives on in the fictions and fantasies of a cruel doctor who killed without conscience and was responsible for the destruction of many thousands of innocent people. While some doctors go into the profession precisely for power over life and death, that anyone in the healing profession would so indifferently inflict pain and destruction on those in his care is rather jarring. Unfortunately, doctors who harm are difficult to detect and stop. Some are careful, having vulnerable victims easily within reach, and others are actually protected by the medical establishment. Let's look at a recent case where an obvious sociopath got away with killing because no one bothered to listen to those who complained. In some respects, Dr. Michael Swango practiced his fiendish experiments like a contemporary Mengele. Oh wow. I assumed this was about Dr. Mengele, but looks like it's about a different guy. Oh my goodness. This is kind of crazy. I forgot. I need what is it called? A caption or something saying this is too much. Just turn it off. It's too much to read. Yeah, just turn it off. Don't listen no more. Ruth Barrick was a neurosurgery patient. She'd hit her head and nearly died, but was doing well there at Ohio State University Medical Center. Dr. Michael Swango, an intern, told a nurse that he was going to check on her. The nurse thought this was strange, and when she later checked on Barrick herself, she found the woman barely breathing. Calling a code, she and the medical team managed to stabilize Barrick's vital signs, and she recovered. Then a few days later, Swango went into Barrick's room again. Another nurse checked on him several times and spotted several syringes. After nearly half an hour with the patient, Swango left. And when the nurse went back in to see Barrick, she found the woman once again in a very bad state. While she administered mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, she heard Dr. Swango come in and say, "That is so disgusting." Yet her efforts were useless. Ruth Barrick was dead, and the nurse suspected that Swango had done something to cause it. In fact, before he disappeared from the place, 5 patients died and several grew terribly ill. He had also given a spicy chicken dinner to several co-workers, all whom became ill afterward. Swango was clearly a menace. Even so, throughout his medical career, people had covered for Swango, and the same thing would happen again and again. He was allowed to get away with murder. His fellow students knew that he was unfit for a medical career and was in fact downright weird. I would agree. His fellow students knew that he was unfit, and they called him 00 Swango because where the medical care was concerned, he seemed to have a black thumb. What they didn't realize was that he truly had a license to kill. It seemed he entered the medical profession precisely as a cover for what he wanted to do to people. He had no compassion. He certainly had some bizarre ideas on what it meant to be a doctor. Yet this athletic, blue-eyed blonde always managed to charm his superiors into believing him. Despite a lackluster performance, he always managed to pass through the system. It wasn't just the medical establishment either. Even his mother seemed to look the other way when he expressed an intense interest in violent deaths. She clipped newspaper articles for him, assuring herself and everyone who commented on the oddity of this interest that the information would further Michael's medical career. He was learning things. No doubt that's true, but what he was learning to do was bring about the deaths of other people. He found it exciting to walk out of the ER to inform worried patients of the death of their child, or to rush to an accident scene where bodies were twisted and torn apart. He lived for this kind of high. In retrospect, it's difficult to understand how he managed to even become a doctor, let alone practice it for almost 2 decades. In 1983, Swango graduated from Southern Illinois School of Medicine in Springfield, Illinois. And although he was a year behind his classmates for failure to complete his assignments, he served his internship at Ohio State University. But when his post was finished, it was not extended, partly because of suspicions that no one seemed to address. After he left, authorities began to investigate him for murder, but found insufficient evidence to charge him with anything. It's not easy to pin a murder on someone giving injections to patients when that's what doctors do. Swango then started to work with a team of paramedics who seemed to get along with him. Feeling comfortable, he told him his ultimate fantasy. It's like this. He said, picture a school bus crammed with kids smashing head on with a trailer truck loaded with gasoline. We're summoned. We get there in a jiffy, and just as another gasoline truck rams the bus, up in flames it goes. Kids are hurled through the air everywhere, and on telephone poles, on streets, especially along the old barbed wire fence along the road, all burning. The others, rightfully so, were put off. This guy was so sick, and they kept their distance. I would have too. Then one day, Swango brought in a box of donuts, and 4 of his fellow co-workers who partook of it got severely ill. Another time, he offered soft drinks to two others who also got sick. They quickly caught on to what he was doing and laid a trap. It soon became clear that Swango was poisoning them. He shrugged off their concerns, yet there was sufficient evidence from the amount of poison found in his locker and home to convict him with 6 counts of aggravated battery, for which he did less than 3 years in prison. Man, they should have put that man under the jail, especially him being a doctor. Despite that, he was accepted into several more positions in Virginia, South Dakota, New York, and Zimbabwe. All he had to do was lie, fake his credentials, adopted aliases, and misrepresent his past employment history. No one checked. And wherever he went, colleagues became ill and patients died. Each time authorities closed in, he was gone. When Swango had finally stopped by the FBI, he'd been on a roll for almost 2 decades in 7 different hospitals. In many cases, someone had seen him with a syringe, and several patients who recovered indicated that it was a blonde doctor who injected them before they lost the ability to feel or move. In 1998, he was charged with killing 5 patients in a hospital in Zimbabwe, where he had worked from 1994 to 1996. However, complications with extraditing him to Africa meant that he would not be prosecuted. Then the FBI looked into his history, and agents estimated that he may have been responsible for directly causing well over 50 deaths. Apparently, he just liked to see what would happen. And when he did this or that to a human being, whether patient or colleague, what happened when he did this to a human being, whether patient or colleague? James Stewart, who wrote Blind Eye, after spending 2 years documenting Swango's swath of death, James called him a psychopath who will never stop. If he is free, Stewart said, he will find the means and place to do it again. I totally agree. Arraigned on July 17th, 2000, he finally confessed in September and pleaded guilty to fatally poisoning 3 patients in 93 at a New York hospital and was convicted of another murder in Ohio. In a plea deal, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The extent of his evil likely surpassed the admissions and may never be known. Swango is not alone in this type of infamy. Oh my goodness. Throughout history, there have been other doctors who killed, and the list of motives is long and complex. My goodness, I wasn't expecting us to go through a lot of doctors, but ooh, I thought it honestly would be one doctor, similar to our story yesterday, but no, it seems like we're going through a good bit. Okay. Killers in this medical profession seem especially heinous, especially while they take an oath to do everything in their power to keep someone alive. They tend to see their patients as guinea pigs. Their motives for becoming doctors seem to be more about power, control, and to gain than about healing and helping. The victims are readily available, and it's not that difficult to cover up certain types of murders. In a major hospital, especially if the patients are elderly or have a serious illness, what's one more injection? While nurses tend to be mercy killers, that's been true of few doctors. Some of the more mundane motives include heroism, misplaced compassion, to cover up another crime, murder by tacit consent, domestic issues. Yeah, this is insane. It says another case of domestic motives was Dr. Sam Shepard, which dominated the news of various times in the 1950s when the murder of his wife, Mary Lynn, occurred in the Cleveland area. to a couple years ago. He was handsome. It seems like a profile here. Handsome, athletic, and philandering. Dr. Shepard claimed that a bushy-haired intruder broke into his home, bludgeoned his pregnant wife to death, and knocked him unconscious in two separate incidences, all without waking his young son and the family dog in a nearby bedroom. Yeah, buddy, you ain't getting away with that. Police, judge, and jury did not believe this incredible story, and Shepard went to prison like he should have. Given the prejudicial newspaper coverage at this trial, super lawyer F. Lee Bailey won Shepard a second trial, which gave the doctor the acquittal. A sympathetic television series and movie called The Fugitive gave Dr. Shepard an additional publicity boost, and in the late 1990s, his son attempted to have the state of Ohio declare his late father innocent using the latest DNA techniques, but was unsuccessful. Many of the people involved in the original murder investigation, as well as many people in the Cleveland area where the murder occurred, believe that Shepard was very guilty of murdering his wife, and that he could, so that he could marry his then girlfriend. Oh my goodness. This is absolutely insane what people do. The crazy thing about all this, there's more. Okay, so certain doctors actually exploit their position and express the purpose of their murder. Such of those reasons are experimentation, like Mengele we just read about, financial profit. They have Dr. Morris Bulber. He organized a partnership of crime in Philadelphia in the 1930s. Bloodlust. I would hate for that. It says, oh, got a subscriber. Yeah, thanks for following. It says, for some, committing a violent death is as exciting as a sexual encounter. They want the heightened feeling that comes from the excitement that results from killing or watching. Others react to death. Michael Swango, who we mentioned a little bit earlier, described a major fatal accident as the ultimate fantasy and admitted how much he loved coming out of the ER. That is crazy. Dr. Francis E. Sweeney was a prime suspect, and the man who super cop Elliot Ness believed was guilty in the series of 13 Depression-era murders in Cleveland. Still officially unsolved, the killer was believed to have medical knowledge and almost uniquely in the serial killer history, killed men and women equally by expert decapitation. Oh, wow. Sweeney, a brilliant, twisted surgeon, taunted Ness for years about not having sufficient evidence to convict him. Then it goes into visionary purposes, punishment and power, relief for inner conflicts. But the question can be asked whether it's a position of power that shapes them into killers, or whether they are just sociopaths who manage to become doctors. Yeah, that's what I'm going with. I'm pretty sure they're sociopaths that just happen to become doctors. They just happen to be good at what they're at. Oh my goodness. Okay. I'm going to do this. Wow. All these different doctors that are like killing people. Okay. Let's do this one last one. And then we'll call it. But yeah, maybe we'll see. In 1886, Robert Louis Stevenson published a Gothic tale, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Less than a decade later, the public would discover just how frighteningly real such a case could be. Dr. Holmes liked to swindle insurance companies. Murder for profit was his game, but he also grew to relish his little hobbies so much that he began to include torture and other types of experiments prior to death. His real name was Herman Webster Mudgett, born in New Hampshire in 1860, and he got into the murder business around the same time as Jack the Ripper, While he confessed in 1896, it's not clear how many people he actually killed or whether he told the truth about anything. What is clear is that he did kill men, women, and children and gave little thought to what he was doing. Mm-mm-mm. Had he not been caught, he'd likely continue to con and kill for the rest of his life. Even as an adolescent, surgery fascinated him. He'd catch animals and perform anatomical experiments on them. When he was 18, he went to medical school at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, graduating at the age of 24. While there, he stole corpses to practice more interesting experiments than the animals that had been afforded to him. He also learned how to use the corpses to defraud life insurance companies by using acid to obliterate their features and then giving them a fictitious name on the insurance policies that he had already taken out. Oh my goodness. And this dude's a killer and a scammer. How nice. He was banned from the place after getting caught with a female corpse, so he moved to Inglewood, a suburb of Chicago, if you did not know. There he'd abandoned his first wife and took on the alias which he would become renowned, Henry Howard Holmes. He secured a position as a druggist, and it wasn't long before the owner of the business, a widow, disappeared. Holmes used the business to sell fake cures, soon became wealthy. Though not divorced, he married again, although his wife left him only after a year. Then Holmes built his castle. It was huge. 3-story hotel-like construction that included soundproof sleeping chambers with peepholes, asbestos padded walls, gas pipes, sliding walls, and vents that Holmes controlled from his bedroom. The sleeping chambers also locked from the outside. The buildings had secret passages, hallways that went in circles, false floors, rooms with torture equipment, such as device that stretched people to twice their height, and specifically is messing me up, equipped surgery. There was also grease chutes and that emptied into the cellar, and a very large stove in the office. This guy has too much time on his hands. Entirely too much time. Into this castle, Holmes lured young women to seduce them, and then he placed them into chambers into which he pumped lethal gas. For what? Sometimes he'd ignite the gas and incinerate his victims. He'd watch and react when they died. He'd slide them down the chutes into a cellar where the vats of acid and other chemicals awaited them. He'd cut up their corpses on a dissecting table and then dump them into the vats, but kept some of the organs. Then he'd sell the bleached skeletons to medical schools. Oh, wow. He's trying to make a profit off the people he killed. Oh, my goodness. One of his victims was a woman who'd become pregnant by him. Botching her abortion, he killed her and then poisoned her teenage daughter. What did the daughter have to do with this? Other victims were people who rented rooms from him in order to attend nearby 1993 fair. Holmes then married a third time and hired a lackey, Herman, is it Pitzel? Peitzel, maybe. In fact, Peitzel got into the act by taking out a life insurance policy on himself and planning a way to disappear. He and Holmes planned a suitable corpse to perpetuate the fraud and then split proceeds. Peitzel should have known what was in store. Holmes was a greedy con artist who wanted all the money for himself. Yeah, Holmes is definitely about to kill him. Let's see. Money for himself. But eventually, he made a mistake, which put him on the run. To get money, he killed 2 sisters from Texas and set fire to their house to try and claim the insurance money. Life was very different back then. Another version says that he set fire to the castle to get the insurance money. Whichever is the case, it prompted an investigation which scarred Holmes sufficiently enough for him to leave Chicago. He went right to Texas and started swindling people out of thousands of dollars. And then he stole Holmes, and then the police went right after him. Catching him in Missouri, he skipped bail and went after Pearsall, who awaited him in Philadelphia. Holmes smothered his accomplice with chloroform and then buried him alive with acid to collect $10,000. I don't know if this $10,000 number is special or not amongst these criminals, but just give them their money. I don't know. Don't kill me. He persuaded Pearsall's wife and family to escape with him, convincing them that the corpse the authorities had found was not Pearsall. He eventually killed 3 of the 5 children, burning the boy in the stove in a rented home and burning the girls in the cellar of yet another space. Oh my goodness. This guy is absolutely insane. Finally, the police grabbed him in Massachusetts and charged him with murder. On the way back from Philadelphia, Holmes bragged endlessly about the criminal mindset. Some of his alleged victims or schemes seem wildly improbable, but he did admit that he'd done enough in his life to be hanged 12 times over. He claimed that the ability to hypnotize people to do whatever he wanted. Yeah, I just realized I got tired. Oof. All right, let's finish this and then we can call it. I just realized I got tired. Some of his alleged schemes were improbable. Okay. He claimed to have the ability to hypnotize people to do whatever he wanted. And when the press got hold of this story, they attributed supernatural powers to the wretched physician. He became known as Bluebeard, and even the creators from the recently published Dracula. While in custody, over 50 people came to the police station to claim that Holmes had victimized them as some kind of con. After locating the bodies of Pearsall's children, investigators soon discovered several skeletons and numerous bone fragments in Chicago Castle. But Holmes insisted that he had nothing to do with it. These people either taken their own lives, he claimed, or had been killed by someone else. He had also said he did not kill Pearsall because the despairing men had committed suicide. Even so, a story of a grave robbing and beheaded corpse was traced to Holmes. Oh, okay. Those people had either taken their own lives, he claimed, or been killed by somebody else. He also said he did not kill Pearsall because the despairing man had committed suicide. Even so, a story of grave robbing and beheaded corpse was traced to Holmes via his own strange tales. It was beginning to look as if his earlier confession might have contained more truth than the police realized. And then it soon became clear that Holmes had killed more people than anyone had suspected. In short order, the castle was taken over and remodeled as Holmes' Horror Castle to be exhibited as a tourist attraction. But before it opened, it burned to the ground. The police suspected some accomplice of Holmes had done it. While in prison, Holmes wrote a book to explain how he was innocent of all the charges, but it had little effect on the outcome of his trial. It was so self-serving that no one took it serious, and there were others more lurid tales about his crimes that made for better reading. Holmes tried to defend himself at trial but was woefully inadequate. And on November 4th, 1985, he was convicted of the first degree murder of Herman Piesel. Finally, inspired by a considerable payment from the Hearst newspaper syndicate, Holmes wrote out a long confession in the Philadelphia Inquirer, insisting that he was born to be a murderer. And I was at his aim to become the most notorious murderer in the world, a killer of monstrous proportions. So he said he had been killed over 100 times. Having second thoughts, he brought that number down to 27. Oh my goodness. Oh wow. He brought the number down to 27 and did not include Piesel, giving the public what they wanted in terms of gruesome details on the killing and corpses. Holmes claimed that he couldn't help but he'd do what he could do. I was born with the evil one as my sponsor beside the bed where I ushered into the world, he lamented. Indeed, he believed that his face was taking on an elongated shape of the devil himself. Yet he felt no remorse for anything he had done. Those are the scariest type of people. Right there. Those are the scariest type. They just don't have conscience. Then, in one quick move, he recanted the confession, and it in fact turned out that several of his victims were not dead at all. Yet so many people who rented rooms from him had gone missing. That estimates the true victims reached around 200. Oh my goodness. And I might have been closer to about 50. On May 7th, 1896, Holmes was taken to the hangman noose, and then even there he changed his story. He claimed to have killed only 2 women, and in the middle of a sentence the trapdoor opened and he was hung, rightfully so. Because he feared grave robbers, especially physicians who wanted to study his brain, he asked that his body be buried deep, covered entirely with cement. The grave was dug 10 feet down, and the coffin was so heavy it tumbled into the hole upside down. Oh wow! Even if she getting out, or even if he was to get out, he can't. Let's see. While Holmes is almost larger than life for his deeds, another physician, which we will read at another time, brought the anomaly of the killing healer into sharper focus. Rather than target patients, okay, I think the world might be able to tell I am tired. But this is crazy though. These stories are crazy. Over here. What's this dude? I see why this book was called Angels of Death. Man, I thought we was talking about one person. Talking about multiple people. Ooh, man, all these doctors are crazy, man. It makes you even think about your regular doctor. Do they have your best interest? And you better find out before you go under. Because if not, you might be at the pearly gates. Because you ain't gonna be here no more. But all right, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream. Appreciate everybody for watching. Like, share, subscribe. If you want me to talk about anything, let me know. Write in the comments. Say something, and I'll